DSE exam is just round the corner. How's your preparation going? Some of my previous students told me their revision is going intensely. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to share with you what you need to pay attention to when you prepare for your DSE Paper 1. Things you can do at home, special areas that you need to focus on, time management, etc., etc. Alrighty, I'll see you on the flip side. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Miss Sarah. Today I'll be talking about DSE Paper 1. The DSE reading paper is an hour and 30 minutes long exam. There are two parts to the paper, Part A and Part B, in which Part A is the compulsory part, and for Part B, you need to decide whether you should do B1 or B2. Personally, I highly recommend you to reach a decision on which Part B you should attempt before the actual exam. With the help of your teachers and your own personal experience of doing practice or past papers, I believe you should know before the exam whether you are a B1 or a B2 type of candidates. I personally advise against choosing B1 or B2 at the exam center. Some candidates look at both topics in B1 and B2, and they make their decision based on whether they feel familiar to the topic. Now, you might think it makes sense that one should have a better chance of success if you already know something about a topic, right? Yes, you're right, but it's not a guarantee. I had students in the past who decided to make their decision on their exam day. The results were, let's just say, they didn't get the level that they hoped they would get. So why is that, you might ask? To answer that, then you need to know why the HKEAA offer both B1 and B2 session in the reading paper. This is what they call the graded approach, and this approach is aimed at catering students with a wide range of ability. So if your ability matches the level 1 to 3 descriptors, then you should be doing B1, and if your ability matches the level 4 to 5, then you should be doing B2. The theme of the reading passages in both B1 and B2 can be very different. And that could be tempting for candidates to choose a topic which they felt more familiar with. However, beware that the actual differences between B1 and B2, which directly related to what level you end up getting, are largely based on how challenging the language is. In other words, the language used in B2 is more challenging than in B1. For example, the vocabulary used, the sentence structures, the language patterns, the complexity of the text structures, whether it's a logical flow or reverse style of organization, all these play into the level of difficulty of the text. So that is why I said it's not advised for candidates to choose B1 and B2 based on how they feel on that day. So please make sure you consult your English teacher and ask for the feedback and opinion on your individual progress and your academic ability before you make this decision. I like to tell my students that choosing B1 and B2 is just an overall strategy, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. Why I mention this in particular is because in the past I see many students getting very self-conscious as to which section they should choose. Like they don't want their friends to see, or they hesitated to choose B1 or B2. Some of them might feel pressured seeing all their peers say choosing B2, and that they sort of stopped them from going for B1, even if it's actually more beneficial for them to choose B1. So I want to say these embarrassments and hesitations are absolutely not necessary. Here, I want to take some time to remind all the DSE candidates that, remember, choosing B1 or B2 doesn't define you. What you want to focus on is to strive for a level that will allow you to achieve your ultimate goal. Your goal might be going to university or pursuing some of the professional qualifications, many different routes to further your study, be it in Hong Kong or abroad. Therefore, the requirement for your personal goal might be very different from others. So choosing B1 or B2, it's really just an overall strategic move. So please make sure you ask your teacher's opinion and find out which category of candidate you are comparing against the graded descriptions, okay? Also, candidates' performance vary among papers. One might choose B1 for their listening paper and then choose B2 for the reading paper. So it all depends on your academic ability in different paper, and choose a section that will best maximize your chances of getting an overall level that you want for this subject. When you are preparing for your reading paper, especially when you do past paper or mock paper practice, you should pay attention to the overall tone of the text. Like, does it carry a positive or a negative tone to the topic? Also pay attention to the attitude of the author. Like, what is the author's perspective on this topic? Does he or she support or not support the topic? Agree or disagree with the topic or with the other people in the text, so on and so forth. Having a basic understanding of author's attitude is very, very important, not only to deal with different question types that might appear in the exam, but also knowing the author's stance helps you to decode the content in a much more focused manner, sometimes even allow your common sense to play a role into interpreting the overall meaning. I want to remind you that any language exam out there is designed and set in a way to examine how well you master the target language. Take English as an example. Any language is an art form. There are a zillion ways for me to express a single idea. For example, I could say I started teaching 20 years ago, or I could also say 2 decades ago I commenced my teaching career. So these two examples, the meaning is similar. It's just a demonstration that there are many different ways to say one thing. So if your mastery of the language is basic and elementary, then I wouldn't expect you to know figurative language or idioms in English. But if you're at an intermediate level, then I would expect you should have heard of phrasal verbs or collocations and stuff. And if you're at an advanced level, I would expect you to have no troubles in understanding various language patterns, from complex to compound complex sentence structures to figurative language, reference and inferences will be a piece of cake to you. A lot of students think if they don't know every single word in the reading passage, then they won't be able to do the reading paper. Like, they literally read the text word by word, and so within the first line, if there are 4 out of 10 words that they don't know, then they immediately shut down and think, this is too hard, I won't be able to do it. Again, this is more of a mental block than an actual block. I like to ask my students if they know every single Chinese words out there, being a native Chinese speaker. They know they don't, but they wouldn't be afraid of a Chinese text. So say they're reading a novel. When they come across words or concepts that they don't know, they will just keep on going, keep on reading. And at some point, things will make sense. Same for any language. If you're a second language learner or a third language learner, take me as an example, English. I don't personally know every single English words out there. I don't recite Cambridge or Oxford Dictionary for fun. But whenever I read, I don't just stop at reading when I come across words that I don't know. I will just keep on reading. The thing is, if you don't give up, at some point, one very important thing will help you make sense of everything, even if not everything, 80% of it, and that is context. Contexts in reading papers are all the elements that affect how we read. Again, the elements that affect how we read. Context includes the setting, the text, the language used, the tenses used, the purpose of the reading, etc., etc. So trusting that context will give you an overall understanding of the text. And if you actively use some reading skills, for example, like skimming and scanning, part of speech, prefixes and suffixes, different discourse markers, to name but a few. With all these simple reading skills alongside your awareness of the context, I'm sure you can have a basic understanding of any text. Last thing I want to talk about in this video is the importance of time management. I usually advise my students to use no more than 40 to 45 minutes to do part A, and give yourself 45 to 50 minutes in part B. Since most of my students in the past are mainly B2 candidates, so this would be the duration I suggest them. As long as you understand the difficulty of paper 1 is B1 followed by part A and then B2. In other words, B1 is easier than part A, and then B2 is more difficult than part A. And that also leads to my second suggestion, that is, if you don't have a full 1.5 hours to spare to finish the whole paper at home, for candidates aiming for level 3 or 4, I would suggest doing part A as practice at home. Then when you're comfortable with it, it means doing B1 would be very, very manageable. However, for candidates aiming for level 5 or above, I suggest pushing yourself to do B2 as practice. Of course, language takes time. The more you do, the better you get. This is the ultimate truth. So if time allows, always attempt the whole paper. Really time yourself for that 1 hour and a half. Allow yourself to mentally and physically feel what it's like to complete a reading paper in one sitting. Normally in school, we don't have enough time to do the whole paper in one lesson. So really, very much depends on you doing your self-practice at home. And it's actually very valuable for you to know how you perform under the time constraint. And most importantly, know how you perform. Whether you're faster in part A or slower in answering a particular type of question, at the end of a practice, be very mindful and really reflect on your strengths and weaknesses so that next time in your self-practice, you can then focus on those areas first. I like to ask my students to actively narrow down their practice goal. Like if you blindly do paper practice without signposting which area you want to improve, then no matter how many different practice papers you do, you are only really recycling the same strategy. However, if you try out different strategy in different practice, then in the end, evaluate your performance, modify or adjust what's necessary, and next time, apply a different strategy to approach the same paper. Again, evaluate and reflect. Compare and contrast which strategy works for you and which doesn't. If you do paper practice like this, then it will be more meaningful than if you just blindly do it for the sake of doing it. I hope you find this video useful. Give me a thumbs up if you do. I'm Miss Sarah, and I'll hope to see you in the next one.